Hey everyone, this is Suresh. In this video tutorial, we are going to learn about reading, updating the data uh, which is there in the object store. Before getting into the demo, I would like to give some idea about what happens internally when we try to do these CRUD operations. So this one we have already seen. This is how we are going to interact with IndexedDB. We use open method to create or use an existing a database. That's going to return an IDB request object back. So again, whenever in IndexedDB, whenever we deal with the database, it's going to be async operation. So the requester, will be listening on some of the event handlers that is given by the database. Mm. Then the IDB request depends on what we are trying to do. In this case, we are trying to open a DB, so the IDB request would have IDB database object in it. Uh, then all the IDB requests would have result attribute in it. You can see it over here. Mm. If the operation is success, then the result would have data in it. Um, the data would depend on what we were trying to do. In this case, we are trying to open a DB, so the result object is going to be IDB database. Then there is one more thing, transaction. That's the one which we are going to use now. In our previous tutorial, we have created object store called a CSS inside on upgrade needed event handler. Now we are going to modify the object store from outside of on upgrade needed event handler. For that, we use a transaction method which is available with this IDB request. And as you see here, this is what we got from the result IDB database, and we have already used create object store inside on upgrade needed event handler that we saw in our previous video tutorial. uh, you may not be able to use create object store anywhere else except in on upgrade needed. So this is how we get the transaction object. As I said before, all the IDB requests would have the result, and the result would have the value depends on what we were trying to do. Mm. So the transaction is going to have two parameters. The first one is uh, a set of object store names. Then the second one is the mode, how we are going to deal with that object store. There are two options, read only and rewrite. It's pretty much evident that read only, if we add, then we are going to have only read access. Read write, you would have read and write access. So here, once you get this transaction, then we are going to use this object store method, uh, and giving the object store a name. That would give the object store IDB object store object back to the caller. With handler, with that we can talk to the table. Let's get into the demo so that it would be easy for us to understand what I've been talking here. Okay, this is what we have seen in our earlier tutorial. Uh, we have created with this object store called CSS, and we have added uh, all these records into that table or object store. Now let me run and make sure that things are fine. Let me clear, refresh it. Oh, there is an error. Okay, so that's because of this duplicated value. Let me correct that. Yeah, now everything is fine. You can just click on this one. We have 4 records, and we have an index on this column, the name. So everything is fine. Let's go back to our code here. As I said before, if you are going to change the structure or the schema of the database, then that has to be done only inside on upgrade needed event handler. Mm. Right now we are going to update the table from outside. So let's get into on success. So whenever the OpenDB is succeeded and the connection is made, then this on success event is going to be called or going to be triggered. We just deal everything inside. So first let me get that DB handler. So this is when this is going to have your DB handler, and this DB handler would have the transaction uh, object. And this transaction would have uh, two parameters in it. The first one is a set of object store names. In our case we have only one, so I just add one. And then the second one is the mode, how we are going to deal with this these objects. uh, uh, we have read only and rewrite. Let me add read write or read only, so that you would see differences. So the transaction object would have object store method in it, through which you can get the store handler. So let me add the store handler variable, then the transaction object store. And the now we know that this transaction can handle multiple object stores, but now we are going to pick up only one object store, that is CSS. Okay, and now we got the store handler, this handler to that table. Now we can do whatever we want. Let's see, let's get the value of some record. Okay, so how are we going to do it? We are going to do something like this: get um, maybe third one. This is same as let me write first this one, then I will tell you. Okay, so ideally I should get the third record from the table called CSS. And you can see here it it picked up this third one. The actual DB would have that value. You can see it here, the third one. You can see, so you got the skeleton back. So this one you can write it in this way also. This is how we used to write. Store handler get 3, then the request. Okay, then the request would have this, the DB request, IDB request. I IDB request object. Hmm. Then you can write on success like this. So instead of doing all of this, I just reduced these lines. That's it. Hmm. Now you got the third record from there. It is printing, which is good. Let's see how you can add data into it. Let's add and name some other framework. We can add some other frameworks over here, uh, which I can think of. There's something called cube. Yeah. Then the grid, not sure 12, but let me add that. It should have responsive, but I'm just adding it for just for the dummy data. I'm adding it false. Um, Now this should be an object. Okay, that's what we were doing. Now if I try to add this part, this is going to add a record into the table, right? Let's see what happens. It throws an error. Okay, still we get an error. Yes. See, okay, we have opened that object store with read-only mode, and we are trying to add something to it, which is not possible. That's why we got that error. So let me change this one to read write, and now let me refresh. Cool. So looks like it has been added. Let's go here and refresh and check the data. See, the fifth one is added, and I haven't given this ID that I have explained in my previous tutorial, that this auto incremented. uh, if you don't mention, then it will keep on adding it. So it's good. Now uh, this is fine. Let me refresh one more time. When I refreshed, what happened? I don't see the sixth one, and I don't see any error here, right? So what happened? Something went wrong, right? Let's see what went wrong. So in this case, we have to to get the error output, to we have to listen on the transactions error handler. Okay, now let's refresh and see what happens. See, you get the result back. The error, there is some error. That's why that has been the on error on the transaction has been called. Let's click on the target, then you would see what exactly happened. Unable to add key to index name index. At least one key does not satisfy the uniqueness. Yeah, that means we have, do you remember in our last tutorial we have added uniqueness to this name attribute. uh, when I refresh the page, uh, the execution comes here, and it'll try to add this data into the DB, sorry, into the table, uh, but cube is already existing, right? The ID is 5. Second time when it tries to uh, add, it will increment the key to 6, but the value will not be added because it's not unique. That's the reason. That's the reason why it failed. So to make it unique, maybe I can add something just like that. So that is going to be added all the time. But every request will have this one be added into the table, which I may not like. See, everything is fine. I refreshed it twice, and do you see that? You can see it from here as well. See, so each refresh it will add one. Each request it will add one. I don't want to add this one for this demo purpose. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take one, maybe 5 is the ID. I will just update the 5 all the time. Yeah, refresh twice. It'll keep on updating the same. So we can clear everything. First time it has added, and refresh again. Now you can see it's going to update the same record. Yeah, so that's cool. So now we have used the store handler. um, this is to get only one record out of that table, right? Object store. What if you want to uh, get select all the records from the table? Then there is something called cursor. um, Through that you can actually move the cursor to each record and retrieve the record out of the table. How are we going to do that? um, have to uh, get that store handler, and that has something called open cursor. Okay, then that is going to return an IDB request, so I'm adding it on success here. Now uh, this one here, what I would do, I can get the value, okay, 2, and there is something called direction that I'm putting it as a next. I'll explain you, just hold on. So the result is going to be IDB cursor. In this case, that's an object, and if there is a value, then the cursor will have okay, when it goes through it, if there is no value, then it will go here. Here, this open cursor. See, if you want to have a single value, then you can get it from here, right? Open cursor, you have an advantage of giving a range, the range of values that you want to retrieve from this table. Let me try. I've just given one ID, and let's see what happens here. you get that particular record out of it. Okay, so okay, what happened, we are not going through each record from there, right? There is a starting point, that's fine, but we are not going to the each record. There is something called cursor continue. This will actually move the cursor to next record. Okay, in this case it doesn't take effect because we are not giving any range. We are just specifically giving one record ID. To give the range, there is something called IDB key range. So this object is available on Windows. So there is something like this. It is similar. Okay, and here you can specify. So this object has a few methods. Okay, first let me go through bound. Bound is having all the upper bound and lower bound uh, configurations. For example, I say this is actually this bound, you are going to give the key. I'm telling that, okay, take this is a lower bound, and the upper bound key would be maybe, I say, 4. Then there are two more parameters. I'll explain you what it is. For now I'll just give it as false. Okay, so this is how you create the key range, and just give that key range here, the first parameter of open cursor. Okay, let's take this. There's some mistake on success. Yeah, let me see what happens if I don't give. No, it takes only one, so that's fine. Now, so when you just give the key range here. So the key range, when you give the key range, it's going to go through all, retrieve all the records which all are in that key range. If you look at the ID, it says 3. This one is the previous one, I guess. If I print anything before, yeah, this one, I'll just comment this, refresh, so it's easy now. 1 2 3 4. Okay, and we are telling here, hey, the lower bound is 1, the key value is 1, and the upper bound key value is 4, and we have two more parameters. This says that the lower, you can, if you mention false, then the output is going to the retrieval is going to include the lower bound as well. Okay, if I say true, then it's not going to include the lower bound. Let's see. You don't see ID1, that is excluded. Same way, if you do true here, this upper bound, then the 4 ID 4 won't be included. So now you get only 2 records. That's the use of those parameters. So this is how you retrieve all the values from the table, the given table. Now we have added something called index, right? So far we are dealing with the keys. These are the primary keys. Okay, That's how we set up this upper bound, lower bound, and even getting the value, we use the key. We haven't used any of the indexed value, right? mm. That we can do it. That is also easy. Let's go here. Let me comment this code. Index just one variable, then the store will have index method, and the index method, now you can uh, it takes one parameter, and that is the name of the index. uh, this is the name which we have given. See, on line number 33, when we created an index, we gave the name as name index. So you should know, which index you are going to access. Now once you get the index, then you can open the cursor and run through it and get the values. So it's that simple. And index would also have uh, the get method. So index get, let me give something like this. This time I'm not giving the primary key value, I'm giving the index name value. uh, Not the index name, the index value. So this time I'm not giving the key value. Here I'm just giving the um, one of the index names, right? That's how I'm going to retrieve this value, this record out of um, the table. And you see that we are able to retrieve this record from the table using index. uh, I haven't used this key, I'm using this name. So same way you can index any of other values also. So mm, now this is just getting the one value, and same as like the cursor, we can run through multiple records using the index. Maybe from pure to cube, and I say false, so include the lower and upper bound, then say index. So wherever we said store handler, now we are going to deal with the index. That's simple. Here we give the key range, and we are going to move the cursor. The cursor direction is going to be next. So there are three more directions. I think it's the previous one that I know, and other two are unique previous or previous unique next unique, something like that. You can check the document. And let me copy this. I want to. It says lower key is greater than the upper key. Yeah, I have given this one first. Okay, so let me give bootstrap. See, you see all the records. So this is how you retrieve uh, records from table. And yeah, there are delete, clear, and all those kind of regular things. You can uh, refer the w3c standard document. That's what I have referred, and mm, I'll leave that link with this video. Mhm. I think that's all about IndexedDB. Uh, I will come up with my next tutorial, that's going to be on application cache. Uh, Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. See you again.